Hey guys, another video for our Wheels in Japan playlist. Quite often, once you get off the main road in Japan, you can find yourself on some fairly narrow little streets. This is an example of that. Often little streets like this weren't originally designed for cars, of course. They were originally designed just for pedestrians and the occasional horse and the occasional person-drawn cart, maybe. So we're in a little K car here, and we're just managing to get around these corners and just managing to stay on this little road. So that's a little bit of an extreme example, but not uncommon, as we've showed you on some previous videos. So usually the smaller the car you can drive in Japan, the better. And small cars are very popular. K cars is the smallest type of car you can drive in Japan, and K cars are popular, and generally small cars, as you'll see going past here, small cars are very popular. However, having said that, some people in Japan are preferring to drive bigger cars. Now there's a big Toyota. In this case, this Toyota is actually made for export, because usually Japanese people don't like it. So it's a left-hand drive. So it's designed for export, but occasionally we see these people have bought them within Japan. The other thing that's popular is these vans. So we've got these vans down the left-hand side here. They're sort of 8-seat people movers, and they're really popular at the moment. So often people with families will have them, and often people with just one little baby will have them. Big 8-seater cars with just, you know, maybe one person driving it, or maybe a small family. And they're just not real practical. If you have a look at this here, you'll see what happens. There's just not enough room for that big car and the other big car coming the other way. As you can see, these other guys having to stop to let that bigger car come past. So they're just not real practical, but they are really, really popular. They've been popular in Japan for years, and they seem to be getting more and more popular as time goes on. So, of course, on the main highways and on the main roads of Japan, they're an absolute pleasure. There's a black one, that black one, there's another example. The other guy in the white's had to move out of his way. So on a big highway or a big main road, they're an absolute pleasure. We've rented these big people movers before when we've had numbers of people to transport around the place. And on a main highway or something like that, they're great. But little roads like this, you can see again, people having to pull over and stop to let the big car go through. And sadly too, some of the people that drive them don't seem to have the skill to go with it. We see some fairly sad sights of people trying to negotiate around in these big cars. This is the same little road again at night. Same problem again, cars having to pull over to let the bigger cars go through. Here's a good example. Have a look at this. We had to stop to let this guy go past. In fairness, that road usually is only one lane anyway. You can only let one car through at a time. But it just makes it that much more tricky when you've got a big one. This was a funny one. This is out in the countryside. These guys had come down a small road and decided they needed to go back and couldn't turn around. So there was the lady who was going backwards and forwards here, the person outside the car, telling them, you know, a little bit more, now back again, forward. We didn't even get the camera out till they'd had 3 goes at it. So they'd been sitting there going backwards and forwards and trying to get round this tree and back onto the little road. And they'd been there for some time before we even started filming them. It went on and on. So it's a Toyota Alphard, that one. They're actually quite popular, those big ones. That's one of the big ones. So again, they're a pleasure to drive. They're really comfortable, and if you've got a big group of people, they're wonderful. But just for a small family, you know, around the place like this, it's just not practical. They finally made it. Pushing with a hand there, that's helpful. And of course the other problem is in Japan is the parking. Usually parking is an issue, as we've showed you before, and often the parking bays are sort of designed for smaller cars. So this is quite common. You'll see one of these big cars straddled over half of another parking spot, or bursting out of its little parking bay because it's bigger than the space, as you can see there. So yeah, if you find yourself in Japan renting a car, rent the smallest car you could find would be our advice. Or either that or stay on the highways and the main roads. There it was. More videos coming soon.